6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I am your host, the dad bod god himself, the bald, the beard, and the fucking beautiful Piers Austin. And tonight I have a very special guest. I have the world's finest Carter Deams on the show tonight. And I'm really excited to have him on the show tonight, guys. But before I bring out Mr. Deams, I want to take a quick pause for the cause to pay respect to some of our sponsors that help us keep basically lights pumping every single night. First up is healthvape.com, ladies and gentlemen. If you know someone who's a cigarette smoker, one of those nasty motherfuckers, I know there's still some of them around, or even a vapor person thingy, you need to get them onto HealthVape. Go to healthvape.com. All of their products are no nicotine, no addictive or harmful chemicals, and they're vitamin infused. If you ask Alan Funk, he says it's like vaping a Red Bull. I've never tried to vape a Red Bull, but I take his word for it. Guys, check out healthvape.com. Use promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Guys, also, while you're checking out things, it's a new year. There's New Year resolutions. Guys, check out sleefs.com. That's SLEEFS, sleefs.com. Now, guys, if you're an athlete or got an athlete in your life, this is the place for you to go, guys. All of their products, they've got armbands, they've got knee bands, compression pants, compression shorts, headbands, mouth guards, boots. They've even got these dirty boxes, guys. And I must say, they've sent me boxes of these dirty boxes of these boxes. And I have to say, these are the most comfortable boxes that I own. I actually threw out all my old boxes. They stay fresh. They stay dry. As I always say, I'm an active guy. I got 3 kids. I work full time. I do these podcasts. I go to the gym. I'm always on the go. And these always stay dry, always stay fresh. So check out those dirty boxes from sleefs.com. Use that promo code MWAPOD and get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Guys, also tell them Piers sent you. It won't do anything for you. It won't do anything for me, but it's always good when someone says my name. So do us a favor. But guys, also we want to make sure that you guys check out some of all the awesome shows we have on the MWA Podcast Network. Like Killing the Business, hosted by former ECW original, the Kingpin Angel Medina, with King Mega and the Burger King, Glenn Sexton, every Saturday at 12 p.m. Australian time. That's 8 p.m. Friday, USA Eastern time. Check it out, guys. Also, make sure you check out the Funkin' Kingpin show hosted by Alan Kwee Funk from WCW and TNA, and also ECW original, the Kingpin Angel Medina. Check out Nights of the Gimmick Table, hosted by the Dead Presidents, Boogaloo and Lowrider. Check out Get Funked, hosted by Alan Funk. Check out NXT Roundup. Check out Wrestling with Sports. Check out Shooting the Shit, because we got it down on lockdown 7 days a week. Guys, check out also Wrestling with Tragedy, where you can find it exclusive on the Russo's brand with me, ECW original Angel, and also John Poz. But guys, without further ado, I'm going to bring out my guest of this evening, Mr. Carter Deams. Carter, thank you for joining me.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, man.
Much respect to the dad bod god too. That's fantastic. That's great. If you see a wrestler that debuts from the House of Free Fighting, know that I stole it from you directly.
No problem at all, man. I actually stole it from like an indie wrestler that like I think wrestles for like Reality of Wrestling. Like I was randomly watching some like
Fantastic.
thing, and I was just like, I'm gonna use that. So
That's sick.
go for it, man. But thank you for being on the show, man. As I said, I've really wanted to have you on for a long time. I'm really excited to have you on, and man, appreciate you giving me your time.
No, pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure's all mine. But we're just talking before the show. You've got a big couple of weeks coming up. There's PWA tomorrow night. PWA Black Label. It's going to be a pretty stacked show, man. And Colt Cabana doing a podcast prior to the show, and then a week later, for Newy Pro. Like, man, you've got a couple of big matches coming up, dude.
I know, and coming out of lockdown, coming out of Christmas. Yeah, I didn't expect to start off so early, so I'm just like hoping that the lungs can carry me through a little bit. I hope. I didn't know I'd be wrestling Adam Brooks and Ben Braxton in January, so hopefully it all goes well. Hopefully COVID stays away from me and stays away from everyone else, so that I can actually do the shows and whatnot. But can't wait, really. I mean, this is what you sign up for, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, man. But like you mentioned, being in lockdown. Were you able to keep fit during lockdown? Like, were you doing any sort of exercise, or were you just like me and just was like, I'm just going to keep back?
I have a little bit of stuff on the balcony, but I've got a young son, so it's like when you got him and you're like, you can only really work out when he goes to sleep, and then you finally put him to sleep, but then you got other things to do. It's like, it's not easy to stay motivated. I did okay. I'm not a big like cardio guy. Like I don't go for a run, or I don't, not going to do burpees at home. Like, all my cardio is from having practice matches at training or blow up drills at training. So the cardio did suffer a lot, but like, gym stuff was all right. I eat pretty good all the time. My protein's pretty high, so I didn't like blow out too bad. But before the first lockdown, like I was in good nick. Like I was feeling really good, and then just like lockdown, come back, finally get in shape, lockdown. So I was just like, I'm hoping to get like in proper good shape and stay in good shape for a long period of time. I don't like the stop start.
Yeah, I mean, like when I saw you at the Academy show, and then at FWA as well, you look like you have actually bulked up with some muscle mass, though. Like,
yeah, it was something I really tried to work hard on. I came into the business like not like 19, and like being like 6'4", 6'5", but only weighing like 85 kilos. I was just like really young. I always looked really young, and it's an issue, not an issue, but it's sort of like a speed hump that a lot of young wrestlers face, is that they really do look young in the ring, and it sort of does take away from like the believability of a lot of things, I believe. And then even when I was doing the feud with Rogers for the belt, like he's such a big, like hairy, like tattooed guy. He looks like a prop. He looked like my dad when I look back at those matches. So my goal was to really try and put on a little bit of weight, like grow the facial hair out a little bit, and like losing the blonde hair helped. And I feel like I've just wanted to look more like a man. It's something I've really tried to like. It sounds like really stupid to try and look more like a man, but like it's very easy to look like a boy in wrestling, especially when you're skinny. So I really tried to put on a bit of weight, and I've probably put on 10 kilos in the last year. Some good weight, some not great, but it's weight for one.
Oh, 100%, and I think that's the main thing as well. But like you started like training like when you were 19, right? Like, you were pretty young.
Like, yeah, like the sort of the first year out of school. So I think it was like sort of around my 19th birthday that I sort of first got into a tryout. So pretty young. Like I had people, I used to get comments by like Shazza all the time, like, how old are you? Like when I debuted, I was like 20, and they're like, oh, fuck you piece of shit. Even now, like I still say to people, I'm only 24. Oh, fuck, you're so young. So it's like, I think not many people really start that young. Like, it's something that you really need to, not a lot of like 19-year-olds are ready to dedicate their whole life to something. So it tends to be something that you sort of around 23, 24, 25, people start to get into it. But I was really early. So even now people are telling me that I'm really young, but I've been in for 5 years. So.
But that's the thing is like, like I think a lot of wrestlers, as I say, once they get to like late 30s, early 40s is like when they actually peak.
Yeah.
So like by the time you get to that, like, you know what I mean?
So.
Like
I'd
your
say you hear
level of
stories like
autonomy.
guys like Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne started when they were like 13, 14. I just don't know how. I don't know how they're alive. Like, I'm sort of glad that I started when I did. I know in hindsight, if I had have been able to like start the year earlier and still like have like the same run that I did, but like in school, I think it would have been pretty cool. I think I would have been pretty over at school. Like a lot of the I went to a sports high school, so they like had a big footy boys and a lot of like great athletes, like some people that play in the NRL or the A League or been to the Olympics and stuff. And to be able to say, oh, like I just main evented in front of 400 people while at school, I think that would have been really cool. But then also, I think I needed that like maturity to have that bit of time away from school. And because like now that I'm 24, everyone thinks that when you turn 18 that you're an adult. You're really not. You're a child. And even I deal with like young people all the time now in wrestling, and like, man, it's like those guys are still so like not switched on. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that I did wait and that it all happened how it did.
I think as well, like at 18, like, and still being in school, like the respect level for wrestling would probably have been a little bit different as well. And I think it's like when you disconnect from being in school, it's like that's when you really grow up. You know what I mean? Like when once you've left school, you're kind of like, okay, this is the real world now. And you sort of like start gaining little bits of experiences.
Yeah, you do a lot. It's like a lot of like, there's sort of like a period where you turn 18 and maybe not when all your mates start turning 18, you go to all these parties and you get drunk and, you don't organise a lift home. So you might walk like 15 Ks home. They're all like sort of things that really like make you grow up quick, and you have a lot of like, maybe like you nearly get in a fight, or maybe like you lose your wallet in, but they're all things that really help you like grow up quick. Now, like if I tried to go out at like 17, 18 and like find my way home from a PWA show in Sydney, like I'd get lost, mate. So you do grow up quick, and like I think everybody needs to sort of go through it, that little growing up period. You need to be like lost. You need to like have no money for a little while. You need to like sort of figure all that stuff out.
Yeah. And I think everyone sort of goes through that. You know what I mean? Like that sort of period in life, unless you just born with a silver
100%.
spoon in your mouth. And
It's so cliche. You got to get your heart broken. You got to lose your first love. You got to like, you got to feel self-conscious about yourself, try and go to the gym. You got to get drunk a whole lot. Like, I feel like it's all super, super important. It's all a part of living. I had some of my best nights, The first night I ever went out, like, Mum, can you come get me from town? Yeah, I'll come get you for sure. Ring, 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 nothing. Walking home 15 Ks, you know what I mean? Like,
she stitched you up.
Oh, and she's never let me down ever again. Ever. Anytime. If I went out right now and I rang Mum at 2 a.m., she would come and get me. She still feels terrible about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, she's nicer than my parents, man. My parents would be like,
oh, she's unreal. Yeah.
Like my parents wouldn't come and get me. They'd wait for me to get home and then kick my ass. then I'd the next day wake up, kick my ass again.
My mum's pretty over in the business, in the new pro locker room. Yeah, she's great value. Yeah. Everybody loves my mum.
Growing up though, like, was pro wrestling, everything for you, or were you like into other sports, like, or was it like pro wrestling only? And
I was like sort of a bit like everyone. I'm a big fan of the video games. We played like Nintendo, WWF, No Mercy. And then I had a cousin who was sort of like, I think he's like sort of like 6 or 7 years older than me. So when I'm like 6 or 7, he's like 12, 13, and he was a bit into he's in like a pretty popular band around Sydney, but he was like always into wrestling, had magazines and things like that. This is only in like 2002, 2003. So magazines were big, and he had all the video games. So I just thought it was so cool. And like, I was a big soccer player. Like I played at a pretty, I'm not going to say a professional level, but I like played sort of like first division, first grade a couple of times, and second division, first grade before I ended up wrestling. Like I just didn't have like, if I had the work ethic for soccer that I do for wrestling sort of back when I was like 15, 16, I probably could have done it, but I just didn't. I was a space cadet. I was like off with the fairies. I didn't really try very hard. And like when all my mates started to like go to the gym or do extra training, I was just like happy playing FIFA and playing like wrestling games and things like that. And wrestling was just one of those things that I always sort of, I'd always come back to. You know how you always go back and watch your favorite show? Like you might go and I just used to always go watch wrestling, and then I'd come back and And I think wrestling's like one of those things when you're like 14, 15, 16, you don't really want everyone to know that you like wrestling because it's got a pretty like, oh, that's pretty fucking terrible. You know what I mean? It's not like the coolest thing in the world when you're that age. So I used to keep it under wraps, but then I figured out a couple of my mates didn't mind it. And, you know, we used to like, I don't have I've tried to find, but there's like a clip of me trying to hit the ropes at school, like in the quad where I like tried to hit the ropes off a window and like the whole window just like sort of shook and, you know, took an RKO on the grass and stuff. And we just had a lot of fun. But yeah, I remember I told when the tryout got announced, I was already just out of school. So I was still friends with all my schoolmates. And one guy said he was coming with me. And I thought he was coming with me. And then I messaged him and said, are you coming? And he goes, mate, I would never go to a wrestling trial. What are you talking about? I was like, I was really serious. I was really serious. So yeah, then
that's heartbreaking.
It was like one of those things where I don't know, like even when I told my mates that I was like gonna start wrestling, I was like, like I'm only like 19. It's not the coolest thing in the world. Like I was like, yeah, I'm sort of wrestling now. But then sort of by the time I told everyone, I had a couple of clips of me doing some stuff. So they're like, oh, that's mad, dude. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I think like, but like when I grew up, it was kind of like the Attitude Era. So like as a teenager, so it was wrestling was kind of cool. It was just funny. It was like people like walking around trying to hit stunners on people in the playground and shit. But like I think
2012 was just not that cool. You know what I mean? Like obviously Cena, who I love, but he's like pretty corny. You know what I mean? He's like, there was the whole like Fruity Pebbles thing that like was right in that era of WWE, which was really PG-13. So it's just like wasn't that cool for fifth, but I loved it. I was just like always loved to go back, and I love documentaries. So I'd be like, like a documentary would come out about like the Hardys, and that was around the time that I figured out how to like illegally stream. So that I was like even before the networks, I was like, I just managed to download like WrestleMania 20, and like I just thought that was the coolest thing ever.
It's funny, man. Like I find myself watching more like old stuff like WCW and ECW stuff because it's like the ECW stuff we never really got here in Australia. So it's like now I have like the network, I have all this access.
Yeah.
So like instead of 100%. Like watching the current WWE product, I'm like watching 1999 ECW. You know,
like when you know about it, and it's like it sounds ridiculous, but like if I chuck on any sort of pay-per-view, I'm watching it as like a wrestler, and it's not as fun. You know what I mean? It's like, that wasn't that clean. It makes you feel like a bit of a dick. Like here's me telling like somebody in NXT or AEW how to wrestle. But when I go back far enough to like my childhood and stuff, it's like I can just watch it as like a little boy. So I just like I'm massive on it. I've been watching a bit of WCW, a bit of like the old pay-per-views, and just like you can learn a lot. Like those guys made a hell of a lot of money, so they're doing things right. And you know, although you probably can't watch them and go, here's how they did their final sequence, and probably it's like really basic. But I've been watching like the way that people like Scott Hall used to walk to the ring, and what did Austin do in certain moments, like sort of different things where I can sort of still watch it and think I'm learning, but at the end of the day, I'm just like a little boy just watching like wrestling on the TV.
Yeah, that I'm the same way, man. Like I watch the older stuff, and it sort of takes me back to the childhood and stuff that I really get into. And it's like
it's nice to not feel like you have to be critical on it, isn't it? It's like nice to watch and go, I don't have to worry about the match structure or did I like the execution. Like here's me the other day watching Wrestle Kingdom, Ospreay and Okada, and I was like, I thought they'd be better. And that's like they've just wrestled for 40 minutes, you know. Crazy match, but I'm sitting there going, could have been better. And I'm like, fuck, I'm such a prick. You know what I mean? Like I don't like to watch wrestling like that. And I didn't watch wrestling for a long time. Like I didn't have New Japan Network or WWE or anything, but only since sort of Warburgs has been in WWE, I sort of got the network back, and he makes me watch it like it's a shoot. Like I watch it and celebrate if he does something good, or get sad when he loses. Like it's a shoot for me when he wrestles. But anything else, I'm like, that wasn't very well done, or God, that was good. And it's just shit. It makes me feel like a upstart. I don't like it. It's subconscious.
Yeah. Well, you know, I do an NXT review podcast, and it's like, even then it's like, you know, I'm not a worker. So it's like, I'm not going to sit there and go, well, that person can't wrestle. Well, fuck, neither the fuck can I. You know what I mean? Like, but I'll sit there and go, this situation I like, this situation I don't like. I think they could have done this better, but
Yeah.
That's my, you know what I mean? Like, but it's never like they can't do this, they can't do that. But it's like, it's understanding. I think like there's some fans that are like that, where it's like they think they can critique what wrestlers do in the ring. I hear it and I'm just like, oh.
Like, it's like the whole, like, it's just, anybody that has a match, I respect. Like, I respect. And I've sort of, now that I know a little bit more about how things work when you're there, how it's not like, although there's the two wrestlers in the ring, there's also the two wrestlers that help them put it together backstage and all those sorts of things. Now that I know, like, just listening to other guys talk about how agents work and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, you know. But then again, like, there's all sorts of preferences and stuff. And if everybody wrestled the way I like to wrestle, it'd probably be garbage. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody likes the way I wrestle or would want to wrestle. So it's just.
But that's the thing. Pro wrestling is so subjective, though. Like, anyone, like, what's good to you might not be good to someone else, and vice versa. And that's okay. That's perfectly cool. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I think the cool thing about wrestling is. There's something for everybody.
Yeah, as long as like, good is good, and what's even things that I don't like, I can still go, well, that was good, but I just don't like it. Like, that doesn't mean it's bad. But some people get real aggressive about it and like, oh, this is pure, this is great, this is what wrestling is. It's like, save it. Like, save it. Not interested.
Oh man, like sometimes I just go on Twitter and just scroll through just to see what some people are writing about like this. And I just sit there and I'm just like laugh to myself. It's like anytime I need to laugh, I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
This human beings writing this shit. But, you know, you mentioned Warburg and, you know, watching his journey, you know, and, you know, you guys were tag teams, you know, you were known as the Babes. One thing I wanted to know, like, how did that team sort of come to be? Because he's a Sydney guy, you're a Newey guy. Like, how did you guys form that team?
This is good. I was hoping you'd talk about this. So back in the day, I say the day, there was probably 6 of us, 7 of us. You could say 8. There might even be 10 of us. But like, I was just watching on the network a thing about the Ruthless Aggression era and how OVW, and they had that big crop, and it had Cena, Orton, Lesnar, Batista, Shelton, and like, it really felt like a new wave. And I think New South Wales wrestling in particular, no, I'm not going to talk because obviously it's a smaller sort of thing than the whole country, but, you know, there was me and there was Rig and there was Warburg and there was Ricky and then there was the Velocities. And there was a few more. There was guys like Tyler Payne and Kai Drake and Lucci, but I felt because we all sort of started similar sort of time, like Rig had a couple of years here. I think Warburg and Ricky had a year on me and whatnot, but we all sort of were approaching like a stage of readiness at the same time. And previously, and probably about the time I just started training, it was if you're getting close to ready, we're trying so hard to get you on. And then because we all sort of started at once, it was like, oh, they could cherry pick a little bit more. So we've only got one spot, but there's 6 really good guys. And then me and Warburg, we just sort of threw some people like, oh, you're a bit like this guy. He likes basketball and he does this and blah, 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 blah. And I hadn't really even met him, to be honest. I've met him at a show here and there. And then I think I met him for real, like knew who he was, and at like it was like an old PWA show, Bishop Summers, I can't speak, Bishop Summers versus Robbie Eagles. And I've met him and we spoke and like, listen, I think there's some mileage in a tag team. You know, we're both like tall, like pretty like handsome looking blokes. Like that we have like between the whole group, we are similar. And then it was around the time Harley was wrestling with Rachel Rose at Newey, and they were the Babes, and they were doing like the whole blonde thing, but they were doing more like anyone that doesn't have blonde hair, sort of like a bit like gross. And they were promoters at Newey were looking for like a manager for them, and they thought it would be really funny to have sort of like a skinny little white dude to go out with 2 like beautiful blonde women, which is sort of like the real opposite of how wrestling used to be, which was like this, obviously the strapping jacked man with the pretty blonde girl. So it was like the roles reversed. And I was obviously 19, 20. Had just got a new girlfriend, and the idea of dyeing my hair blonde terrified me. I didn't want to tell mum. I didn't want to tell dad. Like, I was just terrified of it. And then I debuted as myself, just as Carter Deams, like brown hair, had a match with a guy called Tanamo, and had a pretty good first match, But the second match after me was Snapchat, who turned out to be Tyler Payne versus Matty Warburg, and he went out with blonde hair, and I was just like, well, I don't know if he had blonde, but he had the match after me, and they went nuts. Like that, they were just, because I think they trained together, and I think they really wanted to just have a really good match, and they were doing some crazy spots. And then everyone was like, oh, this Warburg dude is really good. And he had the jersey and the glasses, and he started to look the part. And then he turned out with blonde hair one day, and this is exactly what we've been looking for. And him and I had already had sort of a half conversation about tagging. So then at another house show, he wrestled as him with blonde hair, and I just had brown hair. And we were NBA, we were natural born athletes, and we had a match, and it went really good. We got some really good heat, and I think we were a bit fresh and a bit new, and we had a lot of new people don't have good ideas, but I think our ideas were a little bit innovative, and we were picking them from the right places. We were watching a little bit of the revival and stuff, and and we just had a couple of good matches. And then when we got to the main roster, Rachel Rose had sort of left, and it was just Harley, and Warburg was going out, and then Harley just said to Hoff, can Carter come out too? And he goes, yeah, but he's got to wear a hat. I wore the hat. We did a whole thing. I ended up dyeing my hair blonde, and then that was it. And then I don't really know. It just was to the races, man. We probably had, I think it was 3 shows maybe, and then I turn up one day, a funny little story. I'd been up all night doing ring crew the night before that, and I was having a sleep in the ring.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was on the show, and I knew that we were versing SMS, and there was a run sheet, and it had us losing to SMS in 8 minutes, and we were on second. And I said to him, bro, we get 8 minutes on the main roster. This is incredible. Yeah. This is the best shit ever. And I messaged him and said, dude, we're fucking on the main show, 8 minutes against SMS. And at the time, I think SMS might have even won the tournament the year before that we were going into. It was a qualifying match. And then anyway, I'm asleep in the ring, and Bonza turns up with a cold bottle of water. He tips it on me, squirts it all over my face, all through the ring. And I'm just woken up, what? What do you want? He goes, wake up. I said, why? He goes, because you're fucking main eventing. I was like, oh, what? What do you mean? And I was like, oh, shit. But I've seen the run. We've got 2 run sheets, and this is the one we're doing. So I went over, and it was Babes versus SMS, 15 minutes, main event, and then we were underlined. So we were going up, and we were just and then I can
just imagine 2 young guys in the business just going out of body experience,
because he was in Sydney, so he was, and I'm messaging him, we're messaging each other, what the fuck's going on? What the fuck is happening? And because I was against SMS, and they were big time at the time. They were they just had Kyle Fletcher left to go overseas for the first time, and it was Snapchat and Unsocial Jordan, and they were both great. I think they'd won it the year before. They were the main sort of tag team, and we were going over, and then it was just one of those instances, man, where every show it seemed we'd turn up and something would just blow our minds. We got to the final of Kings of the Castle, and Kings of the Castle was that was a sick tournament. In the Nations had won it, the Velocities ended up winning it, SMS won it, I think. So on Lightspeed Express won it. So Robbie Eagles has won it, Bonds has won it, Mix won it. We're talking, it was the launching pad tournament. It sort of gets referred to as, and we turn up. Maybe we'll. We're in the tournament. We're on on our first poster, and we ended up winning it. It was just bro, what is happening? What is everything was every show something crazy happens, and we'll get some cool things at PWA, and suddenly we've got the Invictus Gauntlets. We've just beat Matt Diamond and Caveman Ugg in the main event of a Newey Pro show, and me and Warburg haven't even been on shows for a year, and we ripped it up, man. We had a really good match. Matt Diamond and Ugg, they really, they're great, obviously, but they really, I think they took the job of putting us over very seriously. I think they really, I have never spoken to them about it, and they must, wrestling's not always that deep, you know what I mean? Yeah. But at least it came off to me that they really took me and Warburg seriously, and they did a really good job of putting us over, and they didn't have, they probably could have got the shits and been we don't want to lose to the new blokes because I was the big baby face in the heavyweight division, and Diamond was a super baby face in the middleweight division. We had no business being in the ring with them, let alone beating them. But they were like happy to do the job, and man, that was the best. Like talk about like things that you'll remember when you're about to die. Mate, that's one of those things I'll hold so dearly. Like that, like run, that initial run, just the best. I remember I told a girl that I sort of had a crush on. She came to see the first show that she ever came to see. Like you might like. I think I knew I was wrestling twice, so I was like, it'll be fun to come watch. So I knew I was going to main event. I knew I was going to rip it up. I remember I won, and me and Warburg both did like a shoey on the edge of the apron, and just look. And I think she thought that I might have actually been like John Cena, like you know what I mean. Like
you were over, like, brother. You were over.
It's a weird sort of illusion. Like you got like there's probably like 350 people in the building because it's a big final, so it's a lot of people for an Australian wrestling show. 350 is a lot of people, and they're all like, we were heels. They're all on their feet, like booing us, but like sort of cheering at the same time. Yeah, because like they appreciated the heel work, and they sort of appreciated that we were the new guys going over, and it was a big deal. But they were booing, and like, man, it was the best. It was so good.
So it wasn't like the cool heel reaction where it's like the half cheer, half boo, but it's like we'll give you the heat that you just deserve to get.
Like it was a rotten finish, and like we beat the two biggest baby faces, but like we won. We sort of got a cheer, and then it was booze. Yeah, it was booze. Like, oh fuck.
Oh, but like that's the thing. Like when I saw you guys tagging, I think it was at wrist locks and pile drivers at PWA. I was just like, these guys they look great. Like I really like dug the gimmick. And with that team with Warburg, and you guys were coming up, I think that like when you get opportunities, it's like you have to be putting in the work to get them. And from everything I've been told about Warburg, that dude is like a fucking workhorse. And like I'm assuming you're the same, mate.
Like in my own right, for sure. But like I have no shame in admitting that guy works me under the table. You know what I mean? Like. There's a reason that he is where he is and has done what he's done. And I think it sort of gets to a point where like I not had to, but like chose to take the foot off the gas. Not like as I didn't love it, but I was just like, I'm turning 23. I've got a child now. I can't train 4 or 5 nights a week and go to Sydney every weekend. Like I had to like make a conscious decision. And he just never made it, man. And he just kept going. And he's obviously like got to the pinnacle of where he'd want to be. Like he's just wrestled AJ Styles on, like it's just ridiculous.
It's almost surreal seeing him on NXT and seeing him on Monday Night Raw and with AJ Styles. And like I was talking to like doing another podcast with some other guys, and they were saying like, this is like, and these guys have been like obviously performers, writers, and whatever, and they've said this is a huge test for your Aussie mate, and they go, going up against AJ Styles like in 2022 is like a wrestler going up against the Undertaker in like 2005. Like
it's a big deal that AJ went back to NXT. Like he has no business doing it. He doesn't have to. And then the match, have you seen the match that they had? You watched it?
Oh yeah, I watched it last night. It was brilliant.
They ripped it up. And I was like, there was actually a part of me that like I was watching the entrances and stuff, and I was in the car with Hoffman watching. I said, this could be a squash, and like it would be fine. Like you know what I mean? Like AJ could squash him, and there would be it's AJ Styles. And then they went 15 minutes. They went to the wall, and AJ was working. And obviously, like AJ has made a career of putting the working boots on and going to work, but he gave. I think Warburg would have finished that match and gone, AJ helped me out a lot there. Like he didn't have to have that match with him, but he did, and it's unbelievable.
You know what? Like, obviously, when AJ went over there, it was like, to me, I was like, there was no like, you didn't lose any momentum losing to AJ Styles. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't sit there and go like, oh well, like what's happens next? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, like. You know what I mean? That was a great match. And then at the end of the match with LA Knight coming out and bang, it's just basically boosting him up to another storyline.
One of the smartest things that Bonzer ever taught me, and Bonzer's like, you've spoken to him, he's a genius with that sort of like critically analyzing wrestling and sort of talking about promotion and like win streaks and things like that. And he goes, nobody cares about win. Like, Warburg says it's not about wins and losses. It's like it's a shoot. Like Bonza said, like win streaks mean nothing unless you tell people about them. And I was like, didn't really ever like think what that might have meant. And then I'd like Warburgs main eventing NXT against AJ Styles. But if you look back, like Warburgs maybe won like 2 matches on NXT, and he's lost a lot. But like it doesn't matter. Like he's wrestled AJ Styles. He's probably got more momentum than just about anyone. Like you can manufacture momentum just by getting a microphone, and he's the perfect guy to do it.
I mean, like this prime example, look at someone like The Miz. You know what I mean? Like he's, I think, similar sort of ethic as where Warburg's at, is like you hear him being like a workhorse, and he's made a career out of it last, 15, 20 years. So, but, when, Maddie got signed to NXT, like, was it like a little bit, I wouldn't want to say disappointment, were you like, oh, fuck, like the team's like, that's it with the team? Or were you like, I want to work my ass harder to get over there with them? Like,
it was one of those things where we hadn't really tagged, like, had a tag match yet for a pretty long time. Like, it was definitely when I was like with my run at Newey, a lot of it was like singles matches, and I was doing a couple of more Team Who's things there. And then at PWA, he was doing more things like with Coliseum and Argon. Obviously, like I was there, but we weren't tagging as a sense that we were like dependent on each other. Like the run depended on each other. It was like 2 companies, 2 singles runs, and then like if he needs me to do a match to help him set up ARG, I can do that, and vice versa and stuff like that. Where a couple of tag teams, you look at guys like the Velocities, they're in the tag team thing, and like Aussie Open and stuff like that. They're like more still doing the tag, like in the tag division, as you would say. So, we hadn't tagged together for a really long time. He'd done Survivor, he'd been to MCW, he'd done heaps of things, and I don't like when he told me about it all, which was sort of around Coliseum. I mean, that Coliseum show was set up for him. Like, if you're ever going to sign anyone at one time, I don't know if you've seen it. Like, it's just he's won Coliseum. He's beat Orange Cassidy, Travis Banks. There's money from the ceiling. Like, he's got a guy dressed up as a beer pong cup. Like, he just was like a mega star, and it was like the perfect audition. And then when he told me, it was just like, mate, like, and the reason it came up is because I was obviously helping a little bit at Newey behind the scenes, and he had to tell me from a business standpoint. He was like, listen, just don't chuck me in anything long-term because this is the case. And then it ended up being a little bit more like long-term with COVID and everything. But I just was immensely proud. Like I didn't have any sort of, because I was lucky that we'd already sort of started to do things on our own. So I didn't get left high and dry. And I sort of, I suppose in hindsight can look back and say, I think I was actually hustling a lot, knowing that he was going to get picked up eventually from somewhere. And then if I don't get my shit together, I'm going to be like just on my own. So I sort of had to like work hard and try and pitch something to get myself in a situation where I didn't have to depend on him. Because if he leaves, or he's either going to stay at PWA and like he's obviously going to stay in the heavyweight title picture, and there's not room for me there. You know what I mean? Like, I have to do something. And then obviously,
and I think that's the good thing about how you guys were as a team. It was like you were 2 singles that were like, you were a tag team kind of, but it was more like 2 singles that are boys that have each other's backs and will team up. And
we only really tagged for that like initial period, man. Like, because pretty much so when I got the Farley thing, that was in January. This is I don't know what year, but it was in January. And then we won Kings in February. So when I sort of knew I was going away, like, because everyone knew I was going to Farley, we weren't getting booked in singles runs because, like, I'm obviously going to go away. So then while I was away, he won the middleweight title at Newey. And it was obviously doing the thing at PWA that sort of got him the, I can't remember what order, but I got back. And then we did I can't remember. Got back and we did a thing with Jax Jordan and Jimmy Havoc and Ugg and all sorts of things like that. And the runs had sort of set us up to be alone. And then I was supposed to go to the New Japan dojo. So again, I wasn't getting booked into anything with him because I was always gone. And then when I knew I was staying, he's gone to Survivor. So we were constantly getting booked around one of us not being there. We never had like since our
Consistent.
first run, we never had a sustained run of like constant tag matches. We'd pop up here and there, but it was more to sort of propel each other's angles. And then because we'd done so well on our own, we were able to then take up like a role of more like novelty matches. Like we got to do the match against Lightspeed Express, Don't Call It Cancel, where like just the weekend before the first lockdown, like I wasn't even supposed to be on that show at all. And it was funny. That's actually a pretty funny story. That's like because COVID's happening, and before anyone knew what COVID was, I was like, I'll just stay home. And I wasn't on the scheduled show that was supposed to run that day. And then Warburg messaged me and said, do you want to be on the show? And I said to him, listen, brother, like I'm not going to come down to Sydney, this pandemic. I don't really know. Like I'm sure there's somebody at PWA that might appreciate a spot better than me. I sent that to him, and then he replies to me saying, don't say that until you see what match. And I was like, all right, fuck. And then the card gets posted in the staff page. It's like Babes versus Lightspeed Express. I was like, oh, fuck. Like, what the hell? So then, obviously drive to PWA, no crowd. You don't know what virus, like we don't know shit about the virus at the time. And we just ripped it up. Babes versus Lightspeed Express. Like we just went ham. And like, that's like, Robbie Eagles is like the best wrestler in the world. Obviously, Warburgs gone to WWE. I'm the new heavyweight champ. Diamond's a king. So it's just like a perfect storm. No room for failure. And the good thing about it was like by that time, because we were the main, all the workers were just around the ring, and they were just popping because they were popping for like the good wrestling. They weren't popping from like I'm invested in the storyline or the characters. They're just popping for the spots and the intricacy and probably like the beauty of it all, I guess, like a real small room sort of thing. I was really cool, man. It was like so good. And then went home and went into lockdown for a couple of months and had all this momentum, like riding high. Like this is the best thing. Like I felt like it was a match that really I just main evented Max Watts with Warburg, Bonza and Mick. And I'd just done a match with Lightspeed Express. I was like, these two matches have put me right up in the mix at PWA. Like I've just hung with like 4 or 5 of the best dudes that there is. Lockdown. I was like, fuck.
Like, did you go through a depression after that? Like, you know what I mean? Like having those great matches and then being in lockdown and not being able to go and like push forward with it. Was it like you go through that stage of just going, like, fuck?
I suppose it's one of those things where like you see people like dying and you're like, obviously I've got it pretty good here. It was more just an inconvenience. And I sort of have taken it like if it was there before, it'll be there when I get back sort of thing. But it was a bit of an inconvenience. And then obviously things change, and obviously like a little bit of because coming back from the second lockdown, knowing that Warburg was going away, they were trying to like wrap up like sort of what he was doing, which didn't really involve me. So then I think I got to like the best sort of run I'd had at PWA to that point, but then like was sort of not out of favor as in I had heat or anything, but just like we're trying to get Warburg to a point where he can sort of like go out looking at the lights and do the favors on the way out. And then, so it just didn't involve me, but I have no regrets, and I've managed to have a great run since then. But it was a little bit like, this is a bit upsetting, but I'm not going to complain. A lot of people had it way worse than me, like losing jobs, losing loved ones. So I'm not depressed or anything. And it was just one of those things that happens. And, there was probably other sort of people in the same sort of boat, like that had momentum and lost it because of the circumstances. But, it's whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to look at it, man. It's a very mature way to look at it, I think, as well. Like it's, it'll be there when it gets back. And, since lockdown, UE Pro heavyweight champ, facing, Ricky South for the PWA championship at the last, show.
Yeah.
Again, like those are great opportunities, to display your talent and a main event level.
Yeah, it was cool because it was like, I think the first match that I had back was against Mick Moretti, which was Warburg's sort of feud before he left. So it almost felt a bit like Warburg's like last favor to me was to like give me this feud that I could take and run with. It sounds funny that I got put into a position to help sort of close off Warburg's last feud. That would also be the feud that helped me get out of his shadow. Like it was sort of his like nod to me, even though he didn't have a choice. But it just sort of felt like it feels almost like it feels special that I'm wrestling Mick and get to finish that angle for him and then go and do something on my own.
Oh, absolutely.
Him and I talk, and he obviously, him and I were best mates. Like we got on like a house on fire. I've stayed at his house for weeks at a time, and he obviously wants me to do really well, and he keeps tabs on everything, and he watches all the shows, so he's always messaging me and giving me feedback, and it's great now getting feedback because he's obviously now giving me feedback through like a WWE lens, which is like unbelievable to have that sort of luck to have a friend that's doing so well and now he's like obviously on a world stage, and he's wrestling Roderick Strong and AJ Styles and Ciampa and getting it feedback from them that he can then sort of filter down for me. So it's like really good, and he's like, I wouldn't be in a spot without him, like, you know what I mean? And I think he said the same for him. Like, that's what tag partners do. But it's even funny now that like sort of without him, he still had his like lasting rub on my career. And now that I'm sort of where I am at PWA, which was in like sort of in like a main event program, sort of around the belt and doing things at PWA that I hadn't done on my own yet, sort of because of him leaving. So it's really cool.
Absolutely. We very rarely get, take fan or viewer questions, but this one, since it's in line with what we're talking about, I thought we'd ask. Robbo Entertainment says, does seeing Warburgs rise make the idea of worldwide success more attainable for you?
Yeah, like for sure, definitely. And it's crazy to see how like going from like I've seen Warburg wrestle in front of like 15 people at like FWA or even like a bigger scale show, but like right there next to you, the same character like put on there, and how easy it was for him to adjust. Because you sort of think that, I think especially a couple of years ago, like Land of the Giants, obviously WWE, like everyone's 6'6" and jacked and bodybuilders and all that sort of stuff. But now seeing a guy that I know is like a regular guy, like my mate, who I've like had beers with, got drunk with, like cried with, laughed with, seeing him there right in the middle of it, it makes it more believable that people can actually do it that aren't like these superhuman athletes or anything. Not that he's not an athlete, but like he's not like an ex-footballer or a bodybuilder or anything. And yeah, seeing even like there was like some segment the other day which was Steph, Indy, and Warburg all on the same screen. I was like, three of my friends. Like, it's just, I think we had a big chat with him, like sort of when he'd been there for a week, and he was really putting over that, mate, WWE is watching everything. And I'm just like, it's so cool. It's just cool. I don't care if I ever get signed. I've got my goals in and around wrestling and outside of wrestling, but like if they're watching and they like what they see, and mate, whatever, you know what I mean? That would be cool. But yeah, it does seem a bit more attainable. It just seems more believable, you know what I mean? Because I never knew Buddy Murphy. I never knew Emma. I never knew the Iconics. So to me, they were always still like that little bit away. It seems like a little bit unbelievable. But seeing like Steph and Warburg are two of my closest friends, seeing them, it's just like, it does seem more believable.
Yeah, and that is even like saying it's like it just comes down and when I had Bonza on, he said it was like just the hard work that they put into it was like, you know what I mean? Steph wanted to go to WWE, so they knew what WWE were looking for, so she trained and did what, you know what I mean, and worked on the things that they wanted. Same with Warburg, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's the thing where it's like if you're an individual that wants something bad enough, and it's a big enough priority for you, it's going to be your main goal. It's your main focus.
And I'm not going to like spoil any of his stories, but some of the things that he's been able to regurgitate to me, seeing how his work ethic and his, I suppose, attitude behind the scenes that he would have at PWA, that you don't, you don't know if somebody's going to go there and they're going to sit and be really polite in the corner and go, yes, sir, no, sir, whatever you need, sir, or if they're going to go and be them. And Warburg's been able to go there and still remain himself behind the scenes, which is a bit of a hype guy, and seeing how it's managed to pay off for him is really cool. It's really cool. I'm glad that he's able to like stay who he is as a human being and not have to change in any way. Like, he's just being himself. And obviously what people see on WWE TV is what they would have seen on PWA TV, but that's what he is like behind the scenes at training. He's like a real hungry, slick talking. Like he's just, he's the ultimate professional. He's humble, hardworking, confident enough in his own abilities. That's why you go to a place where there's the best independent wrestlers in the world, the best former athletes in the world, guys that come from the NFL, and this guy's just like a skinny white dude from Australia, and he's managed to talk his way to the top. It's just unbelievable.
But I think that's like the thing. Like you're seeing Grayson Waller is Matty Warburg. You're seeing that
100%.
Same thing that you've been in PWA. I think like there was a period where like maybe it was only like a few weeks where he's like, I noticed like the promos. I was like, well, that doesn't really sound like, you know what I mean? Like something you're seeing how he does promos. And then after a few more weeks, it's like, I don't know if they're whatever they're doing for his promos. I'm just saying as something that I saw that I picked up on, I was like, oh shit, we're seeing more and more of him coming out. And I'm like, this is some cool shit, you know?
Yeah. It's weird because you hear people talk about like scripted promos and things like that. I know Warburg and I know him as a wrestler, and everything he's saying is straight out of his head. It's just like just him.
Yeah. And I think he's probably one of the best talkers in NXT. You know what I mean? Like hands down.
That guy could talk for. I've seen that guy do some crazy things on the microphone. Like he was able to do things like the beer pong stuff that he used to do at PWA, and entertain people. Like when him and I were tagging, I wasn't very good at the character stuff as yet. I was finding my feet. I hadn't really had a background in performance. I had more of an athletic background, so the actual execution of everything I think came very naturally to me. But watching him just like do the character stuff and get us both over, I was like, mate, this guy's on a fucking another planet compared to some of us here.
Yeah. And it just that hard work, man, and dedication to it, and it definitely paid off for him. But as far as yourself, like, what's your goals in wrestling? Like, do you you've got a young family? Like, do you want to go overseas? Do you want to like get signed? Is that something that is a focus for you? Or?
I'm sort of at a point where like I think it's a question you can't really answer until like they come knocking at the door. I could sit here real smug and say, oh, I don't want to get signed, but obviously that's a thing that if it was presented to me, I'd probably jump at it full swing. For me, my goal in wrestling is just to like make it financially beneficial for me, which is sort of the route that I've taken recently. Obviously, I do help behind the scenes at Newey, so I'm able to make some money like off Newey as well. And obviously, PWA is sort of like the company that I still. That's like my 100% like creative outlet where if I like think I got something cool, I want to do it there. And then anything else is sort of like, it needs to be worth it for me, brother. Like I work, obviously I've been working when I was a young kid and like just early in the business, I could take, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday off work and not think twice about it. I can't do that anymore. Yeah, so now if there's, companies that go, can you work this weekend? And I go, well, if I got to take a day off work, I can't, because I'm not going to give up $200, $250, $300, $400, $500 worth of work for $50. So I just want wrestling to get to a point for me, which it is at the moment, but obviously the more you keep going, the more you want to grow and things like that, just to make it like whatever money I make from my job, wrestling makes me a little bit more. And I just want to make enough, like I just want to make money, brother. Like, if a wrestling contract came my way that was going to replace all the money I'm making and then some, I'm sure I'd jump at it. But if a wrestling contract came my way that was considerably lower than what I was going to earn at my normal job, I probably would let it slide. I'd love to do a little bit more traveling around like Australia. Obviously, I was probably at a point where that was a possibility before COVID. I know I'd spoken to a few different companies, but I just I'm not going to spoil anyone's match fees, but obviously talking to a couple of people, seeing how they get booked like interstate and like what sort of fees they charge, I would like to just get to that point, charge a couple of $100 for a match, get flown here, do that, get paid, go home, then next week go to work and be a weekend warrior, as they say, and make my money here and then make a couple of extra $100 on the weekend and just live a good life, brother. I love what I do at the moment. I love being the coach at the House of Free Fighting and seeing sort of my own rookies sort of come onto the shows and develop, and I can see my influences on them, or spots that we might have spoken about, or things that I might have been cool for them, and see them then put that on shows. And then when if for some reason I might not be on the show or not booked or might be injured, I can still see like me on that show, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade anything at the moment. I'll just like to keep going. The only thing I really want is to get like a full sort of run, you know what I mean? Like have an uninterrupted year of like shows, you know what I mean? Like be able to do 12 shows for Newey this year and be able to get back in City Hall and, you know, have a good run at PWA. My ultimate goal, I think, it sounds real like I don't want to shoot myself. I'd love to just get and work towards like a belt at PWA. And the reason because of that is PWA it would be the proper reward for like hard work, where I think I've like even put like an asterisk on my own title run at Newey, because I know that when it came to it, I did pitch the idea for me to do the feud with Rogers. And although I didn't like book myself towards a title, I don't know if everyone fully believes that I didn't. But if at PWA, if I got a belt there, I know that I fully deserved it in my head. And I don't know if anyone feels that way about me at Newey, or if anyone sort of goes, oh, Carter and Hoff are good friends, so he's obviously putting himself over or anything like that. But at least if it was at PWA, it's obvious that's not a challenge. I don't have any influence there. I just do what I'm told and work hard for my opportunities. So
do you feel that people in Newey would say that though?
No, but I also think there's like, obviously like I got a really cool match like next week and like Brooksy's coming. So it's like, oh, would he have got that match if he wasn't like sort of there? And, you know, I like to think that I've made a few decisions with the influence I have to help benefit other people. But again, nobody's ever got a note. Like the meetings aren't like open-ended. People don't know how they happen, and it's not my say. I don't have the final say. It's sometimes I might pitch an idea or, you know, talk things over or give some influence and stuff, and maybe I do have a little bit of creative control over what I do, but it's not. I'm currently not like aggressively trying to keep myself with the strap at Newey or anything like that. To be fair, if COVID hadn't have happened, I probably would have got rid of the belt like 6 months into my reign. You know what I mean? Like it's just the coincidence that we've had 2 lockdowns that I've managed to keep it for as long as I have. And those people and like the Newey locker room, those people that know a lot about wrestling and know the ins and outs, it's not like you can just come back after a 6-month sort of layoff of lockdowns and then just drop the belt in your first match back. You've got to build a contender, and you've got to build the feud with the contender, and you've got to see if that contender is like over enough to take the belt from you. It's like a pretty intricate process. It's not just me booking myself to win or anything like that. Just you've got to make it work, and then you might get to a point where, oh, we've got a contender that can beat, and then another lockdown. So you got to sort of start again, and it's just unfortunate. And I've obviously benefited from that, but yeah, I just think a belt at PWA would at least mentally make me feel like I properly earned something. And that's all I really want to do, is be satisfied in my work enough that people think that I properly deserve something.
But I think if Hoff decides to put the belt on you, he looks at you as the guy who's going to, obviously whoever the champion is the guy who's going to draw the most money, the old school way.
I definitely think that when I won it, I was the obvious choice. I think it was probably between me and Rig, who was going to get it next. And I knew that he wanted to put one of the guys from his school over. And I knew that I had the gauntlet from when I won it with Matty. I come back from Farley Dojo. I was supposed to drop that gauntlet and lose the title match the week before it, like before I went to Farley Dojo. But then Rogers got help, like couldn't do the show, so I had to keep the gauntlet. Came back, was going to New Japan, so I had to drop the gauntlet. Lost the match against Kelly. Didn't go to New Japan. Kelly won the belt back from. Rogers won the belt back from Kelly. I just said, I was like, listen, I think there's a match here between me and Rogers. I'd sort of helped him win the belt, and I'd sort of taken that champ spot when he wasn't there, and I have nothing to show for it. And I think there was just an angle there, and he just bit. And, you know, nobody can argue with how it went, because we sold out 2 shows that we marqueed, and, you know, I like to think that I've done a pretty good job with what I've had. You know what I mean? I was able to close City Hall, but it's just one of those things where, if you people do know that you do help, and I don't help that much. I just might message like, oh, we want to book, we want to book the velocities. Can you see if they're available? Yeah. Hey, dudes, can you free? And this is what you're going to do on the show or whatnot. But when I can see from like, if there was somebody that was a bit shitty, like, oh, Carter's always getting a good opportunity. I could see why that would annoy people. And that's sort of why I'd want to do it somewhere else and be like, well, this title run at PWA justifies the one I just had at Newey. And it's not because it's more like an intrinsic motivation. It's more like an asterisk I've put against myself as going, oh, I want to feel like I properly deserve it. And there probably is no one that doesn't think I don't deserve it. I think most people you would ask, they would say, oh, he did a good job and he did deserve it. And he is a really good wrestler, but it's just that thing inside of me that wants to do it and like justify it for myself.
Yeah. I mean, I completely can understand that and get where you're coming from. But look, guys, we are at that 1 hour mark. It is the time of the show for 60 seconds with Piers. How this is going to work, I'm going to fire a bunch of questions at Carter. He's got 60 seconds to answer as many of them as he can. When you're ready, you let me know and we'll get the timer started.
After you.
All right, 1 sec. Let's go. Okay, Snapchat or TikTok?
TikTok for sure.
Home barbecues or nightclubs?
Barbecues.
The last TV show or movie you recorded or downloaded?
Fight Club.
Favorite Australian place to visit?
Oh, my mum's house.
Would you rather toe-length fingers or finger-length toes?
I'll go finger-length toes.
If you were to release an album, what genre of music would it be and what would the album name be?
Hip-hop. And it'd be Sweet Dreams.
Fairy bread, plain fairy bread or fairy bread with Nutella?
Oh, I mean, I want to say I've never had it, but Nutella, that would be lit. That would be sick.
Right. What would your autobiography be called?
Why are you reading this?
If you could take credit for any film in history, which film would it be?
Wolf on Wall Street.
Okay, last one. In 5 minutes, you are being shipped to outer space. What 2 personal belongings do you take with you, excluding human beings?
And they all work?
Yeah.
They work? I'll take my phone and PlayStation.
All right, there you go. What? Maybe a phone and a charger?
Yeah, true. Let's hope the spaceship has the charger. All that gear in the spaceship, brother. Surely there's a USB port.
That's it. But that has been 60 seconds with Piers. Thank you very much, Carter. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Man, I'd love to get you back on for a part 2. I feel like the hour just sort of flew by. But man, if you're keen, I'd love to get you back on in the next.
Because I ramble.
Not at all. Not at all. But where can everyone find you on social media?
Carter Deams Pro on Instagram. It's all I really use. You could probably find me on Facebook, but I'm not there. If anyone ever wants to get in touch, Instagram's the place to get me. It's my favorite social media for sure.
And what about merch? Can anyone get you merch anywhere?
At a show, brother. My merch game's the worst in wrestling.
There you go. So you got to attend a show to get some merch for Carter Deams, guys. So make sure you hit him up at a show, get some merch, follow him on Instagram and also Facebook. But guys, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Carter. And I just want to say a quick thanks to our sponsors, Health Vape and Sleeps. Make sure you go check both those companies out. Use promo code MWAPOD and get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, share, like, comment, all of that good shit. If you're listening on a podcast platform, leave us a 5-star review, leave us a comment. It helps a lot with the algorithms and to get our product out there to another level of people. So I appreciate it. But guys, we're going to see you again very, very soon. Until then, that's Carter. I'm Piers, and we'll see you again very soon. Take care. Peace.
Thanks, brother.